This is a historic day. I mean, I feel like we've had a series of historic firsts the last few, well, not first, but historic events the last few weeks, starting with the assassination attempt, Republican National Convention, and now today, Joe Biden announcing that he is stepping down from his candidacy as a presidential candidate. So it's a monumental shift, but not out of line with what was expected, I guess, or what was thought was going to happen. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. Again, the party process is such that we elect our president through or our presidential candidate through the convention process. And that just happened last week with the Republican convention process, and the Democratic convention occurs August 19th through 22nd. So at that point, all of our delegates will get together and identify who's going to be our next presidential candidate. And I think there's been some confusion regarding the primary process. I've seen a lot of Republicans, especially on KLTV, talk about votes being thrown away and election integrity, and Democrats not adhering to those values. But that's just how both party processes work. We have a primary process that occurs in March, and that primary process is to select the delegates that go to the convention so that a president can be selected. So
you're speaking regarding what Nathaniel Moran, what Congressman Moran.
Correct. Said. Yeah. Moran. Yeah. And considering he's a first-time freshman, he might not understand that process entirely, but I assumed he would at this point. But yeah, we have a specific party process for the Republican and Democratic conventions.
And his statement pertained to the more than 4 million Democrats who voted in March in the primary. Yeah, his statement centered on the will of the people. The delegates at the DNC can be given to whomever the party chooses.
Correct.
His question was more on executing the will of the people.
Right. And the primary process is a process through the parties. From a will of the people perspective, the president has never been elected by a direct vote from any voter. We have the delegation process. We have the electoral college process. There's no direct one-to-one correlation between a vote and a presidential nomination. Like even now, Donald Trump has never won a popular vote. But he's still been the president. So there's a line of secession that occurs there. That's just the way that party processes work. And I think Moran's comment specifically was that we were throwing out our 14 million votes and Democrats didn't care about the will of the voters. And that's just untrue. That's untrue.
What do you expect next for the party? What are you expecting at the DNC?
DNC, I just from what's happening later today, that announcement occurred earlier today. It seems like every larger Democratic representative and Democratic senator has come out in support of Kamala Harris. So I fully expect her to get that presidential nomination from the DNC. There might be a faction or two pop up here and there. It looks like Joe Manchin is he might re-sign his Democratic pledge so that he can run as a presidential candidate. But ultimately, I think Kamala Harris will be that nominee, and then there will be hopefully a debate sometime after that, and Kamala Harris is going to clean house, I think.
As recently as July 11th, the Texas Tribune, a nonpartisan publication, published an article with the headline questioning Harris's favorability in Texas being even lower than Biden's. Specifically, hers at 56% and Biden's at 55% and Trump's at 46%.
Yeah.
Will Texas support Harris more so than Biden?
That's a good question. I don't know those specific polls. I'm assuming they're one of the UT polls. Which have been, there's a margin of error in those polls specifically, but Texas has never really gone for the Democratic candidate. Like I know we've gone for Trump twice. So that's not really a major concern, but I do expect her to do better than Biden in this next election process.
Going back to some of the comments that were made from Congressman Moran, he specifically stating he would like to be a fly on the wall of the DNC convention, saying that he expects it to be a dumpster fire, disagreement on the floor. Your take on that?
That's part of the party process. We have a refinement process at every party level, and I would be very suspect if the parties didn't have some sort of like conflict or some sort of just issue that needs to be worked out at the party level, because that's we go through those party convention levels to refine our processes and refine our policies. People have disagreements, we work them out, and then we come out with a finished product on the other side. So yeah, I'd love for him to be a fly on the wall too, so you can see how a real convention process works, because it seemed like the Republican convention was a lot of show and not much policy.
In the meantime, he expects the Republican Party just to keep going forward with their
Sure.
current message.
Yep.
Border spending, debt. What can Democrats do to close that gap? What should the party be doing?
Well, I mean, I don't. I've
Or
heard
the
some of their
candidate, I
messaging.
should say.
What's that? Say that one more time.
Or the candidate, Harris. What can they do to close the gap?
She has been the border czar during the Biden administration, but I feel like the Biden administration hasn't really given her a lot of leeway or tasks a lot of runway to accomplish her goals. So I'm really curious to see how she, let's assume she's elected. I want to see how she accomplishes those goals in the future. I think Texas is probably skewed against her just because of this border situation. There's a lot of misinformation around border control and border wall, and we're a border state, obviously, and Greg Abbott has put a lot of effort into the border through his efforts, but I think there's a new day coming.
All right, Mr. Grace, anything else you'd like to add?
Not at all. Thank you. I know there's some misinformation. There was a little bit of miscommunication, and we got crossed. But thank you for allowing me to speak up again about this. And I hope you all have a great day. And I can't wait to see what happens in August, because I know this is going to be a bumpy ride for the next few weeks.
It's going to be an interesting 106 days.
Well, until the party has nominated a candidate, it will be rocky on the Democratic side, and I'm open for any conversation around that. So
very good. All right. Thank you again, sir.
all right. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Mhm.